Alright guys, welcome to project number 2 in our Tkinter series. In this video, we're going to create a registration form. So you might have seen that when installing software, sometimes you end up with these registration pages where they ask you for your information, just stuff like your name or whatever, alright? So basically that's what we're going to create today. Now, the main highlight of today's video is the pack layout manager, right? Now the pack layout manager is a bit tricky, but it's a very powerful layout tool. There's grid, place, and pack. All right, pack is the oldest one, and it's very commonly used, and you'll find it recommended by a lot of people. So the thing is, pack is actually a bit hard to use. Like something like grid, for instance, is much more it's more easier. Like you just use column and rows, right? Pack is a bit trickier to use, but once you figure out how it works, then you'll understand. All right. And unfortunately, I've noticed that there aren't actually much online resources that actually show how to properly use pack outside of simple examples. So in this video, we're going to be especially focusing on how to use pack to create a full layout, all right? Because we'll have at least like 15 widgets in our registration form. Okay, so let's begin. This is going to be pretty long, so I might make some mistakes, all right? There'll be a lot of tweaking and stuff. So please bear with me. The first thing I'm going to do is create a main frame, okay? And within this frame, I'm basically going to be putting all the other frames, okay? Now, this multi-frame concept is actually very commonly used in pack, okay? In grid, we have our own thing. In place, we just use coordinates. But in pack, if you want to properly place elements, you need to use multiple frames, okay? There's no real way of getting around that. And here I'm just going to pack up this frame, okay? And for now, let's just give it some padding, okay? We'll be adding in some more options later on, but let's just give it some padding for now. Okay, this is one important thing. You need to remember that normally what people might do is that they just do this, they'll write these 2 lines and then proceed, okay? They might start doing something else over here and create something else, blah, blah. But what you need to do actually is write code in between these 2 lines. Basically, once you do pack, what pack does, it sort of puts it into the GUI window. Now, it doesn't make sense to pack something before you've properly placed everything you want to within it. Basically, when you pack something, I used this example before in one of my videos, but basically when you're packing something, it's like a suitcase. It's like you're putting stuff inside of it, and when you call the pack statement, it's like closing that suitcase and just putting it away somewhere. But do you want to pack it, close the suitcase first, or do you want to put the things inside it and then close it? So that's basically what we're doing here. We're going to put all the widgets that we create, all the frames that we create, and that we want to put within this main frame, we're going to put in between these 2 lines. Okay? So this is something important that you need to keep in mind. So basically, we're just going to banish this line all the way down there and begin creating our frames. Now, I'm going to be creating multiple frames, so it's good to basically keep a good structure in mind before beginning. Okay? Basically, I'm going to divide this entire thing within sections. I know I'm talking a lot before we've actually begun, but it's necessary to have this proper thought process before actually beginning. So I'm going to be creating several subsections within this main frame, and then we'll be putting widgets within each subsection. So don't worry, it's not very complicated. I'm just going to create section 1 here, and I'll highlight it like this. Okay. This basically is section 1. And let's go ahead and create one more for now. This is section 2. Okay? Great. So what I'm going to do here is go and create my first subframe. Or let's call this section 1. Okay? Self.main. Okay? And then at the bottom over here, I'm going to pack this frame. Okay? And the reason I'm picking pad x is equal to 5 and pad y is equal to 5, because from my experience, these values are work for almost anything. Okay? I'm going to copy paste in this as well and put this in here. Okay? So basically, we now have the frames for 2 sections set up. Okay? we can now begin creating code. Now let's just go ahead and run this. I don't think we'll actually see much. Yeah, there's nothing to see. We haven't created any widgets yet. So I hope you've been able to follow me so far, because right now we're just creating the structure of our program, okay, of our GUI window. The actual widgets are, we're going to start with them now. So basically, let me just revise. We created a main frame, okay, and then we created 2 frames within this main frame. Okay, we call this one section 1, and we call this one section 2. Okay, so that was just a quick revision. And let's actually begin creating some widgets. Okay, now so the naming system I'm going to be using is, like, for entry, I'm going to say E1. For label, I'm going to say L1. Okay, you can pick any other naming system if you want to, but because of the number of widgets here, I just want something short and concise. And I find that this works well enough. So I'm going to put this label in section 1. And remember, we're creating a sort of registration form here. So what is something that is almost always asked for in a registration form? Your name. So let's create that first. Text is equal to first name. Okay, and let's pack this in. L1.pack pad x is equal to 5, pad y is equal to 5. I should really just copy paste this. Okay, so we can do this faster. Okay, and next up, I want to create an entry widget. Self.section1, and yeah, let's just leave it like that for now. E1.pack. All right, great. So should we try running this now? Let's see what happens. Okay, so the widget is appearing correctly. I want to create one more now. As you noticed, I just made one for the first name. I want to make one for the last name as well. And let me just change the names here, L2, E2. Okay, great. Let's just run this. All right, good. All right, now basically what I'm going to do here is begin positioning these, all right? And you'll now also begin understanding why I create sections, okay? Why I'm not just doing this all within one frame, okay? And hopefully by the end of this video, everything will become clear to you. So this is where I use the side parameter. And by the way, there are a lot of parameters for side, pack, pack, place, and grid. So if you don't know about these, I advise you to watch the very first video in our series, all right, where I explain each and every parameter and show how they're used, okay? So over here, I'm going to use side. This is an alignment option, okay? So I'm going to pick right. My directions are terrible, so I'm not even sure if that's the right side. But let's just see what happens, okay? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I picked the wrong one. Let's go with left. I think this will work. Left, side is equal to left, and slight problem there. I made a spelling mistake. Okay, and there you go. Look at that. We have our first section created. Now that looks pretty nice, if I may say so myself. Basically, what we have over here is 4 widgets, and they're all aligned. Now let me explain how this really came to be, okay? Basically, we created this label over here, and then we said move to the left, okay? And basically, it got put over here, because this is the most left spot, right? And then we created the entry, and then we said move to the left. And now the entry widget, it can't move past this widget, right? Because that widget is already there. So basically, it occupied the next available space, which is right after the first name label, which is this. And then the second label came along, the third widget, and then it came over here. And then the fourth widget, the entry that we created over here, came over here. So I hope you understood how this worked, how the side option worked here and created this layout. We basically, you know how normally they stack vertically? Over here, they're basically stacking to the left. That's basically what's going on. Pack is basically just stacking of widgets. Now you need to be smart about it, and maybe instead of stacking them vertically, maybe stack them horizontally, which is what we're doing over here. Okay? So yeah, this is section 1, first name and last name. Now let's create section 2. Okay? Okay, before that, I'm going to go ahead and show you why I'm creating separate sections. Okay, now what I want to do is create a new entry widget and label, of course, for the address and postal code. Now let me show you what happens if I try creating it within the same section. Okay, because seeing is believing. So let me show you. Self.section1 text is equal to address. Pack this in first. And let me just copy that again. Okay. Self.e3 is equal to label, entry. Self.section1. And let's just leave it at that for now. Self.e3.pack. Okay. I'm actually going to increase the width, okay, because I want the address to have more space, all right, more space in the name, because addresses are, of course, much longer. So let's see what happens. All right, now you can see that this was a terrible result. The reason is that we have different alignment options over here. That some of the widgets are basically to the side, they're all stacking to the left, but the address is still stacking vertically. So this is causing problems. So basically that's why we create separate sections. Okay? Every time we want to change our alignment format, we basically switch to a new section. Because now that we've used left over here, we can't use anything else. Okay, not really. Well, we could in certain circumstances, like maybe if you wanted to align something to the right, you could try that. But in this situation, we can't do it. Okay, I just showed you, I mean. So let's try putting this into another section and see what happens. Okay, we're still running into problems. Hold on, I'm pretty sure I know why this is going on. And this brings us to some of the other options. Wait, hold on. Before that, let's just fix this. I was still putting it in section 1. Yeah, okay. We don't need to use those options yet, but don't worry, I'll show you them soon enough. Basically, what happened here is now that the frames are still stacking vertically. Now, this is a lot to take in, I know. But if you want to properly understand this, just watch this video carefully. Keep watching it until you understand, okay? Because if you watch this carefully and understand each concept here, you'll basically master the pack layout manager. So basically what's happening here is that the frames are still stacking vertically. Okay, so this is frame 1, this is frame 2. But within these frames, we can change the stacking format. We can have them stack to the left, I mean horizontally. We can align them to the left and align them to the right, the bottom, the top, whatever. But the frames are still stacking vertically. And if you want to, you could get even more complex. You could create you could create a main frame, then create another frame within that, which basically has more frames within that, and which are all aligned differently. You can go ahead. It just matters on how creative you really are. Okay. And I want to actually begin doing the same thing over here. Actually, side is equal to left. Okay, side is equal to the left. Okay. And I'm going to create a new one. Self.l4 is equal to label self.section2 and postal code. And again, I'm just picking random stuff mostly, stuff that makes some sense. You don't need to make the same kind of registration form that I am, but just learn the concepts. Okay, that's all you need to do. And finally, E4. Entry self.section2. Okay, I hope you're following all that, by the way, that we've created several new frames. Okay, like we have the main frame, then we have the subframes. Okay, so yeah, I hope you're still following all that. Okay, and let's see, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, entry widget. I want to create a small one for 6 characters. Okay, I don't think a postal code will really be longer than that. Pad y is equal to 5 and side is equal to left. Now let's see how this looks. Alright, not bad. I think that looks decent enough. Now before we proceed, perhaps we should begin looking at some of the other options available within the frames. Okay, So maybe first of all we should disable resize, maybe. Or you know what, before we do that, let's actually go ahead and take a look at some of these options, okay? So what I want to do here first is go around and change a few settings. For one, let's go to the main pack statement, okay? And I want to change a few options. I want to set expand to true and fill to is equal to x. Now what does this do? Expand is equal to true means that if there is space available, then expand the frame to basically fill in that space. So basically it's like if the frame occupies half the window, okay, the widgets inside it are not that big, okay, but because of that, basically the frame expands around the widget, right? And if the widget expands, so too will the frame around it. So this option where it says that, ignore that, that's what this option says. It says that if there's space available, expand, regardless of the widget inside of it, okay? And the fill is equal to x over here tells it to expand in the x direction, okay? You can do this y as well, you can do both as well, okay? But I don't really want that, okay? Not yet, anyway. So basically what this does, fill is equal to x, it says you're only allowed to expand in the x direction, okay? Not the y direction and not both, okay? And I want to actually make the same settings everywhere else, okay? Now this isn't actually that important and you can like get by without this, but there's just some very minor effects that this has that I like to keep. Okay, let's see. Well, there's no notable change here, really. But there is one thing I want to show you now. The reason I was actually doing all this is to actually do something else. Okay, look, that's a bit complicated to explain, but let me explain this by actually trying to do this over here on this entry widget. I'm going to tell it expand is equal to true and fill is equal to x. Now watch what happens. Okay, so did you notice any change? Now if you didn't, let me do that again. I'm going to undo all this, okay? And I'm going to run this. Now, watch. Okay, take a good look at the address entry widget, okay? And now I'll put that back in. So did you see it? What basically happened is that the address entry widget over here expanded to fill in that extra space. You see? So basically, you can also see now that they're perfectly symmetrical. Basically, the two entry widgets over here line up and the two labels over here line up. Previously, the postal code was somewhere, it was ending somewhere over here. And you could see empty space. And that doesn't look very good when you're creating forms, right? So yeah, now why did I do this to the frames? Why did I put the expand and fill options in the frames? Well, basically, it's like this. If the frame cannot expand, then how is the widget going to expand? Basically, if the container in which the entry widget is, if that doesn't expand, then the entry widget will not be able to expand itself. It's like putting something expandable within something that's not expandable. So until the container sizes increases, the widget itself, in this case the entry widget, will not be able to increase. So that's why first I had to make the main frame expandable, then I had to go and make the subframe in which the entry widget is expandable. So yeah, I had to do all this just to ensure that the entry widget would expand. Now let's take a look at one more thing. Alright, you can see this over here that if I try increasing the size of the window, the entry widget also expands. Now at this point there's several ways of handling this. Either you can go ahead and put the expand statement within all of these widgets. So basically as we increase the window, all of the widgets basically increase in size. That's one way of handling it. But I think I'll avoid that, and I don't think that's something very realistic. I mean, how many forms have you seen where you're allowed to actually change the size? So basically for this, what I'm going to do is just make life easier on everybody and root.resizable false and false. Now what this does is that false over here basically disables resizing in the x direction. Over here it disables resizing in the y direction. So if I run this code now, and you can't actually go around resizing it, you see? So yeah, pretty good. And I think that we'll just keep it this way. So let's move ahead now, and I think that I've explained the basics pretty well. Okay, so I'm not gonna be very repetitive. I'm not gonna actually explain everything in supreme detail now because most of it is gonna be pretty similar. So let's actually try moving faster now. Okay, and only stopping where we need to. So this is section 3. Okay, in section 3, I want to introduce some ready buttons and check buttons. Okay, so let's begin. Actually, I'm gonna move fast. I'm gonna copy paste this over here. Move this over here, just delete all these widgets, okay? Just change this over here, section 3, okay? And what I want to do is create some ready buttons. R1, ready button, okay? Section 3, okay, great. Oh boy, we'll need some of those, right? Just hold on a minute. Okay, and come here. Great. Okay. Text is equal to, let's just pick option 1. Okay. And, or you know what? Let's pick male. Let's make it some kind of a gender thing. Okay. Like self.l, which L are we on? 5. Label. Self.section 3. And text is equal to pick your gender. Great. Self.l5. Okay, great. Now, variable. Now, if you don't know how check buttons work, basically, I highly advise you to go and check the video link in the description below. It'll explain all about check buttons and how they work. Okay, but basically, if you want a really quick explanation, what I'm doing here is basically creating an int variable that will store the values of the ready buttons. Okay. And you'll understand this more as we go on. Now I'll just quickly copy paste this over here. Another one over there. Okay. R3. This one's R2. Great. Okay, and female. Let's just pick another other. Okay, and they'll all have the same variable because check buttons can only have one value selected at a time. Okay, so this is kind of important. And yeah, let's try that. Okay, what's wrong over here? Oh, okay, I see. Okay, another problem. Okay, so another mistake over there. Let's just fix that. Okay, and yeah, there we go. We have our ready buttons. Okay, now I don't really like the look of that. Not yet, anyway. So basically, what I'm going to do here is actually go and make a few changes. Okay, there's just 1 or 2 mistakes we've made. Let me just begin correcting those. This isn't really a mistake, adding stuff over here, but we'll definitely need it later on. What we really needed to do is actually give them some values. Okay, that's why all of them were being selected. When I clicked on them. So each of them needs to have a separate value, okay? Now it's working, see? Okay, now it doesn't look that good, the way it is currently. Basically, I want to create 3 check buttons and 3 radio buttons, okay? So what I'm going to do is basically make the radio buttons over here on this half and the check buttons over here. Now, how am I going to do that? For that, I'm going to actually make 2 more frames, 2 more sub-frames. So you see section 3 over here, I'm going to make 2 more frames within this section 3. Okay, now I know that this might be a little excessive, but this is just what you got to do. So section 3, subframe 1, okay? And I'm going to make it till here, okay? And let's just make some extra gap between these sections, okay? And I'll make one more, section 3, subframe 2, okay? And we'll work on that in a minute. And let's just move this out of here, okay? And yeah, this is over here, great, okay. Neatness is key, okay? That'll help you organize this a lot better. So let's begin creating that subframe, self.sub1. Okay, maybe something like sub3, section 3, maybe 1, part 1. Or, well, you can pick whatever naming system you want to, okay? Just make sure it's something that you'll recognize, okay? And I'll close this over here. Self to section, okay, pad x is equal to 5, pad y is equal to 5, okay, great. And yeah, that's about it. Okay, we'll do that later, okay? I want to show you what it'll look like without any adjustments. You'll understand soon. I'm just going to copy paste this over here. Okay, and I'm just going to make some modifications for the second subframe, and I'll just change these to pick an option. Okay, and oof, I forgot one major thing. You need to change all of these. Okay, and we need to start changing these over here too to the sub 2. Okay, subsection of section 3. Okay, great. Now I just need to change these to check buttons. Check button. And I'll change these to C for check button. Okay, and we'll change that over there. Okay, now one thing with the check buttons is that each check button has its own variable, unique variable. So we need to create 3 of these. Again, if you don't understand this, just refer to our tutorials linked in the description below, okay? And we are just about done. If I remember correctly, check buttons don't have values. Yeah, they don't. That's just a radio button thing. Okay. I believe check buttons just return a 0 or 1 depending on whether they're selected or not. And I'm not really sure what to put in the check button, so I'm just going to write some generic option 1, option 2, option 3, okay? Okay, we're done. Now let's actually run this and see what happens. Okay, now look at that. We have, let's sort of try to understand what the format is. So let's just ignore this over here because we've already talked about that in detail. But over here, basically this is one whole frame, section 3, okay? This is section 3. Now this over here is subsection 1, and this over here is subsection 2. Now the reason I created 2 subsections is for basically alignment. If you're okay with this kind of format, then sure, you don't need to create subsections because they're stacking vertically. But if you want to do something like this, which I want to, I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to put this to the left, and I'm going to put this to the right. So if you want something like this, then you'll need to basically do what I'm doing here, okay? Now, I don't like the fact that there's so much empty space in between them. So what I'm going to do is maybe increase the padding, the pad X. Okay, let's increase both of these to 50. Okay, there you go. That looks a lot better. So let's try just entering some data. Okay, coders legacy, Okay, great, and something generic like xxx at ABC Street. Okay, and 000. So this is what our login form looks like right now. Okay, we've got the name field, address, postal code. We've gotten some options over here for gender and just something else. This is just a placeholder. You can put whatever here, whatever you want over there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add one more thing, one last thing into this. Okay. And for that, I'm going to create section 4. And again, the main point of this video is kind of teaching you how to use pack, honestly. It's not that you learn how to create a registration form. Okay, that's just a side benefit. It's more like you learn how to properly use pack to use all these widgets together. Okay, so make sure that you pay close attention to all of that. Okay, section 4 stuff.main. Okay, and just remember that each section or each frame needs to refer to the correct parent. Let's just quickly review that. We created the main frame over here, and each section refers, sort of connects itself to the main frame. It's sort of telling it that I'm the child of that main frame. We have the same thing. We have a slight mistake here actually. Watch this. It should not be self.main. It should be self.section3. Okay, because this is, the subsection 1 is a child of section 3, right? This is actually a slight mistake, and while we didn't notice it yet, it's something that could have easily come up later and caused us a lot of problems. Okay, so there's no visible change, but this is something that could have caused a lot of problems, so be careful, okay? Now let's just finish up this one. Section 4 dot pack x is equal to 5, pad y is equal to 5, expand is equal to true, okay, and fill is equal to x. Alright, so let's just create one last thing, the t, okay, t for the text widget. Now I kind of forgotten how this is exactly created, but let's just see, hold on. Okay, t1.pack, okay, pad x is equal to 5, pad y is equal to 5. Now let's run this and see what happens. Okay, yeah, so basically the text widget is by default enormous, okay, so you kind of need to, well, adjust this a bit. Maybe expand is equal to false. I wonder what will happen if I do that actually. No. Let's just put that back to true, and we'll just manually adjust the size, okay? Or you know what, let's just leave this for now. Let's adjust the size first. So width is equal to 5, and wait, I actually mean height is equal to 5. Height is the number of rows, okay, in the text widget, and the width is the number of characters that can fit in one line. Let's just go with 25 for now. Let's see what happens. Maybe a little too small, or maybe let's just increase that a bit. 30. Okay, let's just add a label over here. Self.l1 is equal to label. Oh wait, sorry. Which L are we on? 6. Okay. Label self.section4. Text should be, what should this be? Something like your comments, maybe? Something like that. Maybe like about yourself, or something like that. Something generic about yourself. Self.l6.pack. Alright. Okay. Now let's try putting in these options. Expand and fill. Okay, so basically what happens now is that it's adjusting to the size of the form. Okay, it's not basically expanding itself, like it's not just changing the entire window size. Okay, which was what was happening earlier. So basically, this is a pretty controlled manner of doing it, and of course we can enter data here now. Okay, so yeah, this is basically it. This is our registration form. We've gotten name, address, postal code, and gender, and again whatever you want to put in there. Okay, depending on your registration form and what you're taking registration for. And we even put in this text box over here if we want him, the user, to basically write some paragraph or something in here. So we have a wide range of options. Okay, I think we've covered everything important here. So for now, we're just going to stop here. Okay. In the next video, we're going to sort of discuss the back end for this, and we're going to discuss how exactly we can take the input stored over here and store it effectively. Because in the previous project, we just created a login form. That was really simple. We can just make a file and save them in there. Okay, that was just two things we needed to save, the username and the password. But over here, we have like the first name, last name, address, postal code, and we have integer values over here, then we have this entire paragraph over here. And that's a lot of stuff. So you can't exactly do the same thing. Okay, there'll be some issues that'll be caused. So in the next video, we'll also take a look at something else, something special. And that's MySQL. We'll see how to actually store data in a database. Okay, how to take the data from here and store it. Okay, trust me, it's very easy, and like I think we'll be done with the main storing part in like 5 minutes. Okay, so don't worry about that. It's easy. It's very easy to set up and everything. Okay, and I'll teach you how to do that. And for the next project, for those of you who may not be interested in the backend, the next project will also be something pretty interesting, and we'll be focusing on the grid layout over there. Okay, we'll be basically creating an entire spreadsheet. Okay, and then we'll be entering and loading and saving data into that spreadsheet. Again, it's very simple. It's actually easier than the one we just did today. So don't be alarmed. Yeah, and subscribe if you want to see more of this and actually stay up to date, because we still have a lot more content coming out, and well, we don't want to disappoint. Okay, so see you in a later video. Thank you for watching.